Welcome. We're going to wait just a minute. Apologize for the delay. Some storming issues in areas. We'll be starting in just a minute. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Melissa Lautenschlager. I'm the Director of Instructional Materials and Implementation at the Texas Education Agency. And welcome today to Adopting and Get It Started with Carnegie Learning, Texas Math Solution. We could go to the next slide. Thank you. So for today's agenda, I'm going to go just a brief overview of Texas Home Learning 3.0 instructional materials. And then we have our friends from Carnegie Learning who will be talking to you about the comprehensive blended math solution, walkthrough of Module 1 and MATHia. And then we'll talk a little bit more about integration, get started today, and have an opportunity to answer some questions. So as a reminder, Texas Home Learning is an optional aligned suite of resources that educators can use fully or in part for their learning environment. And so it consists of instructional materials, and we'll be talking specifically about the 612 math solution and technology and professional development. I have my colleague, Kristen Hole, who's joining us, and so she might be taking over in just a moment, but I'm going to continue here.
I am here now. Apologies. Everyone, there was a loud clap of thunder right at 1 p.m. and all of my electricity went out. So apologies for that delay here. But Melissa, I'm happy to pick up if that works.
That sounds great, Kristen. Go ahead.
Great. So for folks who are just now joining the call, we do want to just quickly highlight why the focus on instructional materials is so important. And actually, I don't have screen share. Okay, great. So a growing body of research has demonstrated that student achievement can increase when students are provided with high quality instructional materials that do provide consistent opportunities to work on assignments aligned to grade level standards, that allow supports for strong instruction to ensure students are deeply engaged with what they're learning, that provide teachers with the ability to meaningfully differentiate between for all students, so including supporting students with unfinished learning, and finally just supporting teachers and helping them set high expectations to ensure all students can meet grade level standards. So really wanting to ground this conversation in the fact that high quality instructional materials can truly support the ultimate end goal, which is student outcomes. Also want to set a quick reminder for the group that in the previous webinar last week, we did name Carnegie Learning Texas as the THL 6 through 12 math product solution. And as a part of that conversation, we gave a quick overview of the product, but today we're just expanding on that. So wanting to highlight before we dive in, again, these are the 6 components of criteria that we require all publishers to meet when they become a THL product. These 6 criteria help us ensure that we are able to provide districts with full sets of instructional materials that are customized specific to this time during COVID. So adaptations for remote learning, as well as a number of other things. This just gives a quick overview of some of what's included, but I do believe Jessica is going to give one more brief highlight as we talk about the Carnegie product. So one other quick reminder, for the THL implementation webinar series, we have an adapt set of webinars that really give some guidance around how a district can think about whether they want to adapt existing resources or change and adopt new sets of resources to meet the needs of their teachers. We also are creating a set of webinar series around for each of the Texas Home Learning products that helps districts think through, do I want to adopt this product? What's included in this product? And just think through the considerations of adoption. And now we're moving more towards the product and stakeholder specific onboarding webinars, where we help districts who have decided, like, yes, I do want to adopt and I want some additional information to help me get started with that. We will also be providing some webinars around technology supports, particularly as districts think through whether they want to use materials in the Schoology LMS, in their own LMS, or even just through the product website for each of the vendors. So again, whenever you're trying to access the resources for Texas Home Learning for a specific product, you can go to the texashomelearning.org website. We will always be listing the upcoming webinars on that website, but you can also access all of the old recorded webinars there as well. So materials and webinars will be made available on that site. We had a webinar on August 25th, and that's really where we gave the overview of what's included in the Carnegie product. So that webinar is there, and it also covers some best practices for implementation. So I'm sure Jessica and or Melissa mentioned this in the intro, but as you have questions throughout this conversation, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. We will do our best to answer questions live where we can, save some time at the end of the presentation to answer questions, and then report back on any unanswered questions through an FAQ document. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica, who is going to talk a little bit more about the Carnegie product.
Great, thanks, Kristen. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Cabales. I lead our customer success team here at Carnegie Learning, and I will be working very closely with the team at TEA and also with your district and school level teams as you decide to utilize the Carnegie Learning resources. What we'd really like to do today is provide you with a little bit deeper of a dive into the resources that are available for your review and access today, and also a better understanding of next steps and how to get started. So one of the things that we discussed on the August 25th webinar was just a kind of higher level overview of the components included in the Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solution, which really is a comprehensive package for instruction and learning materials for middle school and high school mathematics. So incorporated into all 8 courses, and so the 8 courses are middle school grades 6 through 8, also accelerated grades 6 and 7 within middle school, and then high school Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. And you'll see that all of the courses have all of the same components and design features. So we are ensuring that all students in middle school and high school are able to access the learning and the learning resources through digital and printable formats and student-facing resources in both English and Spanish. All of the lessons are high quality, rigorously designed, and designed to fit into 36 weeks of instruction. You'll also see, and we're going to look at this a little bit deeper, all of the lesson resources have been TEKS aligned, and you will have both student and teacher resources that align back to the TEKS, including the formative and summative assessments that will mirror some of the assessment types that they see on the STAR assessment, and also provide you with different data points for understanding and engaging student progress towards proficiency with the TEKS standards. So just again, a quick review of how to get to these materials. We're going to come back to this a few times, but I just wanted to point you into this site if you have not had a chance to explore yet on your own. On the Texas Home Learning site, once you navigate to the instructional materials section, you will see under math where the grade 6 to 12 band is. There is a link there that allows you to click to access materials. That link will then take you to Carnegie Learning's homepage for the Texas Math Solution. And one of the resources that you will find here is a link that allows you to explore the materials. The materials that you have access to by clicking on this button are the current available, reviewed, and published resources for each of the 8 courses within Module 1. And these are the lesson resources. So I'm going to show you in a little while where you will go on this site to access MATHia, which is the personalized artificial intelligence-based tutoring software that students will also have access to. You can demo that as well, but for right now, clicking on this button will take you to a Google folder that will have sample lessons and resources for each one of the courses. Before we kind of take a look at what that organization looks like, I wanted to just review how the Carnegie Learning courses are organized, knowing that these terms are used a little bit differently across publishers. So each of the Carnegie Learning courses is divided into 5 modules. So those 5 modules will span across 36 weeks of instruction and are designed to provide students with a comprehensive pathway through their grade or course level content. So each one, you'll see the modules at the highest level. And then within each module, there will be topics. And you can think of topics similar to a chapter. So there are different numbers of topics within each of the modules, and then within each topic, we have lessons. So we're going to take a look today at the different resources that you see listed here, and also ensure that you have a clear understanding of where to go to review those sample materials as well. So again, clicking on the Explore Materials link is going to take you to a folder that has a separate folder for each course, and within each course you're going to find the following materials. You will find course overview and pacing information along with sample topic instructional materials. These are the actual materials that implementing teachers and students will have access to for the first topic within each of the courses. So we're going to use grade 7 as an example today, although just as a reminder, you are free to go and explore resources for any of the courses at any time on your own as well. So as we're looking at the grade 7 example within the course overview and pacing, the first thing you'll see is a course pacing guide. All of the course pacing guides that are created for the 8 courses are designed for 36 weeks of instruction and assume a 45-minute daily session. You'll see the pacing guide's recommendation for pacing in terms of days based on those 45-minute sessions. However, pacing can be easily adjusted to fit block and other alternate schedules. Also within the pacing guides, you'll notice that there are TEKS alignments listed at the lesson level, as well as intentional guidance and incorporation around implementing the blended learning resources together. We have the MATHia days included in the overall pacing, and the assessment days are also built in, indicating and ensuring that days are set aside for end of topic assessments. Also then within the course overview and pacing is the course front matter for both teachers and students. And so in the teacher implementation guide, the front matter is a great resource for you to review as a resource as you're getting familiar with the overall Carnegie Learning Texas Math solution. It has a lot of great information in there. So this one screenshot is not really doing it justice, but you can go and look in the front matter to see, in addition to just the table of contents for the course, you'll also find an overview of all of the course components and how the mathematical content and practice standards are going to be built across the course. You can review the research and the instructional design behind the Carnegie Learning Texas Math solution, as well as course level maps, which are going to highlight the mathematical concepts within the course and also across courses, and highlight how they are built across both the middle school and high school course pathways. The Teacher's Implementation Guide front matter also provides an overview of the built-in instructional supports, which you see highlighted here. Things including an overview of the lesson structure and different problem types, the incorporation of Texas Math Process Standards, strategies for grouping students, questions to elicit student response, differentiation strategies, and ELL support. So if you're looking for something and want to understand how it's incorporated or where you would access it within the Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solution, the front matter is definitely where you're going to find that information. The student editions also come with the front matter at the beginning of the book, a little bit slimmed down compared to the teacher implementation, but you'll see, again, in addition to the table of contents, the student edition front matter provides students with an introduction and overview of the lesson structure, including the components that they will encounter as they work through the lessons. So including the learning goals, the getting started, activities, talk the talk, and the assignment pages. Students can also review different examples of the types of problems that they will see and how the Texas Math Process Standards will be incorporated into their learning. The next thing that teachers will have access to at the topic level is a topic pacing guide. So just a little bit more broken down from the course pacing guide, and the topic level pacing guide also incorporates the English language proficiency standards that are addressed within the topic. Within the teacher implementation guide, teachers will also have access to the module overview, which is going to provide teachers with an understanding of the reasoning behind the module name, the mathematics that are being developed throughout the module, connections to prior and future learning, and then additional pacing information. So there is an overview provided both at the module level, so there will be 5 of those per course. And then within each module, there is a topic overview provided as well. And the topic overview provides additional information around how the topic is organized, different entry points for students, how a student will demonstrate understanding, why the mathematics is important, how the different activities in the topics and lessons promote expertise in the practice standards, and additional descriptions of the intentional blend in student learning opportunities. On the student side at the topic level, they're provided with a topic summary. And the topic summary is going to provide a list of key terms encountered within the topic. These key terms can also be referenced within the glossary. And the topic summary will also provide a recap of the mathematical concepts addressed within the lesson. Let's take a look at the lesson resources. So the student lesson resources are, again, accessible both in printable PDF format. That is what you're going to have available now in the Google folder that you can see as samples from topic 1. They will also be accessible in a digital interactive format. As students are working in the digital interactive format, they will also encounter instructional videos. Some of these videos are intentionally embedded and placed at the point of use as necessary to support the development of key mathematics concepts in a virtual setting. There are, however, additional videos available for teachers to review and assign to students in order to provide more intentional scaffolding and guidance during remote learning. The teacher lesson resources, again, are both available in printable PDF format and also in a digital interactive format. The printable PDF format can be reviewed for all of topic 1 for each course within the Carnegie Learning site. The next thing that you will see in those sample resources as well are the assignments. There is 1 assignment per lesson. You'll notice on the pacing that lessons often span multiple days, which allows different portions of the assignment to be used based on that day's progress. Each assignment will include the same 5 sections. There is the write, which provides students with the opportunity to reflect on their work and clarify their thinking. Remember, which helps students and encourages students to take notes of the key concepts from the lesson. The practice gives students the opportunity to utilize concepts learned in the lesson to solve problems. Stretch. This section is designed for students who are ready for a challenge and may not be something that you would assign to all students. Teachers, however, can choose to assign this section to students who are ready for more advanced concepts. And then the review section provides spaced practice of concepts from previous lessons and topics, and also of fluency skills that are important to the course. And then you'll see within the review materials that you have access to currently, the teacher version of the student assignment also then has the assignment answers. One of the other resources available for students is they're working through the assignments is LiveHint. LiveHint is a conversational chatbot that provides real-time hints on assignment practice problems. LiveHint is also available to use on a mobile device. So it is built for a mobile-first phone experience to support remote learning through artificial intelligence, which provides personalized support for each student. So just another preview of a tool that students will have access to. For summative assessment, there is an end of topic assessment included for each topic. Oh, sorry. There's an end of topic assessment included for each topic. The only exception to that is for topics that span more than 4 weeks. And in those topics, you will also have access to a mid-topic assessment. And then you'll notice one other component that is shared in the resources that you currently have access to, and it is the family guide. So again, there is one family guide per topic. These are really designed to just assist families as they talk to students about what they're learning. They provide an overview of the mathematics within the topic and how that math is connected to what students already know and how that knowledge will then be used in future learning. All of the family guides also incorporate an illustration of math from the real world, a sample standardized test question, and a few key terms. The next thing we're going to take a look at is MATHia. So MATHia is the powerful half of Carnegie Learning's Texas Math Solution, where individual and personalized learning happens. MATHia provides students with constructive guidance, helping them make connections to the real world, and also provides personalized scaffolding like a human coach or tutor. Teachers and students will receive ongoing customized feedback and data around student learning and understanding. And MATHia's skill-based approach is going to help ensure mastery of critical math standards and skills. Earlier, I referenced the Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solution page. In that page, if you scroll down, you'll notice there is a section down below that provides a high-level sample of course materials. So this is different than the Explore the Resources, which actually is providing you with the full topic 1 resources for each course. Down here, this is really just meant to provide a one course sample of each one of these things that you see on the screen. But this is also where you're able to launch a MATHia demo for either middle school or high school. I'm going to do that live right now so that we can take a look at that together. But if you want to go in, I do encourage you to kind of navigate and visit that page where you will be able to launch both of those demos. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to switch screens really quickly so that we can take a look at MATHia together. So again, MATHia is Carnegie Learning's artificially based, personalized math tutoring software, and it is intended to be used in partnership with the student-facing interactive lessons. Students will experience a parallel pathway of content within both resources, with MATHia being the resource that provides them with the opportunity to work through that course level content at their own pace. Okay, so this is the student side of MATHia, if you have not had an opportunity to see this. You'll notice that as the students launch in, it's going to ask them, if it's the first time, it's going to ask them if they want to go through a workspace introduction. There are lots of built-in things that will pop up like this for students, helping them to really understand the different instructional supports that are available to them within the software. So you'll notice at different times, different messages will pop up, kind of encouraging students to become familiar or refamiliarize themselves with the resources and tools that are available. I'm going to skip this part for right now and just kind of go to the workspace. But then you'll see that I always have the ability to go back and access the step-by-step example problem or the sample problem as I'm working. And then you'll see that as I'm working here, I can open up my Scalometer, where it is going to show me the progress that I am making towards the skills that are addressed within this workspace. So you'll see within this specific 7th grade workspace, there are 9 skills that all of the students will encounter as they work through the problems and also work to kind of build their understanding, and then subsequently demonstrate that understanding in order to get through the workspace. That's where some of the personalization is going to come in as well. So for example, I may be working through this workspace and my classmate Mike is working through the same workspace at the same time I am. Mike may be able to successfully get through the workspace in, I'm just going to make a number here, let's say 8 problems, because within those 8 problems, Mike encounters the skills. Each problem can address multiple skills, and Mike is able to successfully demonstrate his understanding of those skills and move on. I, on the other hand, may be struggling, and MATHia, just like a teacher would, recognizes that I need additional scaffolding and support and more opportunities to engage with problems that address those skills to build my understanding and then demonstrate that understanding before I'm going to be moved on. And so you'll see that students are going to move at different rates through the software, and that's okay. That is definitely the instructional intent behind the workspace. So I'm just kind of picking up here, this is actually a workspace we were working in earlier. So if I look at this problem here and it's asking me to enter the circumference of this coin. So I have a couple of different options. If I know what I'm doing, I can just go ahead and type the circumference of the coin in. If I don't know how to do it, I can actually come up here and request a hint. So if I've read the problem, I'm still really not sure, I can come right here and pull up a hint. The hints are always going to kind of build on themselves. So you'll see the very first hint, it's saying hint 1 of 3. The first hint is really meant to redirect students and get them to access the information that is presented to them. So it's not giving them anything that they can't already access, but it's reminding them of maybe where to go to get started. So this is just giving me a hint to take a look at the glossary if I'm not sure what I need to do to compute the circumference of the circle. So then you'll see here, it's going to bring that up for me. And I can close this out. So now that I know what the circumference, what I need to do, I need to multiply pi by the diameter. You can see I can go over here to identify what the diameter is. I can type 22 in. And then you'll see that I actually do have the ability to just use the expression editor right in the box to do that. So I can type pi and then hit enter right within the box. Okay, so then you notice if you saw what happened once I hit enter there, if I open up my scalometer again, you'll see that some of my scalometer dials are starting to build because I was able to apply the circumference to answer that question. So let's say I'm now working on the area of the coin. Okay, so again, let's just pretend I'm not sure what I'm doing. And I'm just gonna put 5 in. So now, you know, it's kind of looking to see, no, you know, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. So again, I can come and click a hint, and it's going to, again, redirect me to go and look in the glossary where I'd be able to click and then move on. And then students are just going to continue to encounter and be served up with problems that give them the opportunity to build understanding with skills that they have yet to demonstrate mastery. So you'll notice when I open up my scalometer, because I wasn't sure what I was doing in this last one, part of this scalometer turned a little bit light blue. That's where it's going to want to see more solid evidence that I really understand the skills that I'm being presented with. So you'll notice that while I was able to successfully do that in this part of the table, this step also incorporates that same skill. And we want to see students being able to successfully demonstrate and apply different skills within different scenarios. Okay, so that is the MATHia software, and I'm going to flip over to one other screen really quickly here. One of the other things that we're going to be talking about in future webinars with implementing schools and teachers are the reports that are available to you as a teacher or an instructional leader. And so there are many reports available within the teacher version of the software that are going to provide you with both individual student and class level views of students' data around progress and performance. So the one that's kind of on the screen right now, this is a predictive analytics report that is really designed to provide full year insight into students' progress through the content, and is also designed to predict students' future performance on related tasks and assessments to the content. So this is definitely something that can be used as we're thinking about looking at how a student is performing within MATHia and gauging where we expect that student to be able to perform on the STAR assessment. The progress report is going to provide your teachers with the ability to look at class level and individual student progress and performance across the entire syllabus. And then you'll also see you can drill down even to an individual skill level. So as I was working through the student version of MATHia just now, all of those little dials represented individual skills. We can see how all of our students perform within each skill as well. Really grouping students and identifying who are my students that need remediation within particular skills, who are my students that are maybe ready to move on. This really helps as we're thinking about small group instruction and really working with students to help identify any misconceptions or gaps in learning. Switch my screen back 1 second. And teachers will also have access to, again, at both the student and the class level, MATHia reports that show student and class level proficiency progress towards the TEAC standards that are addressed within the content assigned to the class. So that will be another report that is also available to them.
I'm going to actually pause you really quick and just answer a couple questions related to some of the materials that are coming up. Okay. So just really quickly, one of the things we talked about in the previous webinar that I want to highlight here as well, the Carnegie product will have its own scope and sequence. That scope of sequence will be aligned to the Texas standards. However, it is not the same scope and sequence that is used for the TEAC's resource system if you are a district that follows that. So we are recommending that if you do choose to adopt Texas Home Learning, the the Carnegie 6.8 or 6.12 even math solution, that you follow the scope and sequence within the Carnegie product to ensure successful implementation. And a big part of that is because the way that the modules and the topics are designed is intentional, and they build on each other. And so if you're mixing them up and putting them in different order, the materials will be much less effective. However, we do know that the timing of these materials is difficult, and districts want to see and be able to look at all of the materials now. At the very end of this presentation, we'll quickly show the slide that shows you the release date for materials on a rolling basis. So one of the things we are also planning to do is provide some supports to districts to say, hey, you may want to choose to switch to Texas Home Learning Resources, but maybe you have to do it at the end of the first 6 weeks or at the end of the second 6 weeks. We'll provide recommendations that help you understand how to start using the Carnegie scope and sequence at those entry points based on when you're starting, taking into account maybe what you would have taught in previous sessions. So we'll be providing some adapted pacing guides, as well as just some additional guidance for how to think about that if you are a district that does want to change and adopt THL. Again, this isn't an optional resource, and so we know sometimes that change can be really hard, and it's optional as to whether or not you want to do it. One of the things that changing will, however, allow you to do is basically pick up the product and use it in totality, because it does offer the daily student and teacher lessons already incorporated. So if you do choose to adopt Texas Home Learning products, you should not have to think about how to be recreating materials or finding additional supplementary resources to meet all of the standards. It will cover all of the standards as well. So I just wanted to highlight that just because I know districts are wrestling with potentially having to transition to Texas Home Learning and how they would do that. The other quick question I want to address is in the materials that Jessica showed, those are just the samples of materials by course. There was a note that there wasn't accelerated course materials in there. We will still be creating those, still be reviewing those. We'll just make sure that those get added when the first sets of topics and modules are ready to be reviewed. And again, the materials, we'll show the slide at the very end of the presentation for when you can expect all the materials to come out, but they will be coming out on a rolling basis. And just highlighting one more time, the reason that that's true is because all materials are being edited as we speak so that they are adaptive to the current context. So making sure they have all supports for remote learning incorporated into the materials, making sure they have digital and print versions available, making sure that you have access to all the progress monitoring and assessment tools. So as those materials are being updated, we are reviewing them. So we're having Texas teachers review them to make sure that they're aligned to the standards and that they meet the remote learning requirements. And as soon as a module or topic is reviewed, we're pushing it out. That's why materials are coming out in waves, because we want to make sure the product is suitable for the current times. So there are a number of other questions in the chat. We'll cover those at the end, but I'm going to turn it back over to Jessica for now.
Thanks, Kristen. We were getting some questions too that I think will be answered on this slide around existing learning management systems or single sign-on solutions that you may potentially have in place right now. Additional questions too, and I saw some pop up in the chat today as well around, my school has already started, or my school has started using this. So there's kind of two different things that I just want to address. If you have existing learning management and single sign-on systems in place, we will be providing getting started guides that will help set up a seamless integration with those existing systems that you're utilizing. However, using Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solution is not dependent on having any of those systems in place either. So there will also be manual getting started options to make sure that all users and teachers and students across the state are able to access these resources. One of the additional pieces as far as timing goes is we will make sure that we are also providing different suggestions and pacing recommendations to ensure that you have a clear understanding of what that entry point looks like for you into the content based on a timeline that works best for your district. For those of you that are maybe thinking about adding an integration system this year, there are benefits to having one, especially as we're thinking about some of the current situations and being able to provide a centralized single sign-on destination for all of your users across both remote and in-school learning. Just wanted to share a quick reminder that TEA has partnered with Schoology to provide you with access for 2 years to Schoology if this is something you are looking to consider. So this information is also on the Texas Home Learning webpage if you are interested in getting started with that. Okay, so we're just going to talk through really quickly what are the next steps to getting started and how you also are able to kind of access some of these resources and next steps on your own. So just a really quick reminder, the Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solution page is accessible via the Texas Home Learning page. You can also access it directly at discover.carnegielearning.com. And at the very top of the page are kind of the 3 buckets that we're going to go through right now. So again, the Explorer materials is what we have reviewed earlier. That is where you will find the course overview and pacing and the topic instructional materials for the 8 courses. I did do a quick check, and I know someone made a comment around the accelerated courses. Those will be up there by end of day tomorrow at the latest. So if you are looking to see specific resources for the accelerated grade 6 and accelerated grade 7, please check there tomorrow and you'll be able to access all of these materials for those courses as well. Just a high-level overview of the different webinars and resources that are available either in recording format right now or will be available as we continue to get up and running. So we're in the first bucket here of exploratory webinars, and Kristen and Melissa provided a reference and overview earlier of the webinar that occurred on August 25th. So that webinar really gave a high-level overview of all of the different components of the Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solution. Today is really designed to give you a better understanding of what those individual components look like and which ones are available today, as well as what are the next steps for actually getting started. So in the middle bucket, once you have made the decision and you would like to implement and utilize the Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solution, we're going to talk about the implementation workshop series available for implementing teachers and instructional leaders. There'll be 2 different cohorts of these offered, and we'll talk through those in more detail in a few minutes. And then we will also have an integration and getting started webinar. TBD coming soon as far as the date, but what we'd really like to be able to provide you with there is additional information around the pathways and next steps for getting started either as a manual setup user or integrating with existing LMS such as Schoology or Canvas, or incorporating use of your single sign-on platforms such as Clever or ClassLink. And then one of the other resources that you will have available are on-demand support modules. We're going to take a look at those too and what those will look like. Those are just additional professional learning resources that will be available to you as you are implementing. So the very first piece of this is the live implementation workshop series. So these are 4-session series, and they are focused on really getting you up and running and getting started with the Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solution. These will be live sessions hosted in 4-week series. And it will provide you with different resources and ensure that you are able to effectively implement all of the components of the Texas Math Solution in both asynchronous and synchronous settings, and also think through how to utilize all of the resources across all of the different learning scenarios that we may encounter this year. These resources, additional information and the descriptions on them can be found on Carnegie Learning's page, and I'll show you how to navigate towards that as well. But you'll see that there are actually 2 cohorts available, and within each cohort there will be a middle school track and a high school track. So the very first cohort is going to start on September 23rd for middle school and September 24th for high school, and then occur in the 3 consecutive weeks after those days. They will be held from 4 to 6 p.m. Central Time each week. They will also be recorded. So if you are unable to attend one of the sessions and need to watch them on demand once the session is complete, the recordings will be made available. And then there's a second cohort, again, for both middle school and high school that will begin on October 28th and October 29th. And then these are the on-demand support modules that I was referring to as well. These will be accessible and live right within your Carnegie Learning platform. And they will live alongside additional resources and supports that we will continue to roll out to support you as you're getting started and throughout the implementation. The bucket on the left is really designed to support you as you're just getting started. Thinking about utilizing the different components of the Texas Math solution, supporting you as you transition from TRS or an existing sequence or resource to Carnegie Learning Math Solutions, thinking about how to best support all students, and then also really using the MATHia data and other assessment data within the resource to drive instruction. The other bucket on the right-hand side is really thinking about how to support virtual teaching best practices in general. So really working to ensure that we are maintaining the same classroom structure and components of our instruction that we would if we were in a brick and mortar school with our students. So to get started with these things, you'll navigate right back to the Carnegie Learning Texas Math Solution page, which again, you can access directly or get to directly from the Texas Home Learning page. You'll notice that then in the middle of that page, there's a button that says Get Started Today. If you click on that, it will take you to a form that allows you to just enter your contact information and schedule an implementation meeting. Once you do that, a member of Carnegie Learning's onboarding team will contact you and set up time to ensure you are provided with the resources and support that your district needs to get started. You'll also on this page be able to select the Join a Workshop, which will take you to that Carnegie Learning professional learning page for Texas, where you can then sign up for an implementation series. That is where you'll also be able to access some of those additional modules and see other information that's available for supports as it becomes available. And I think that is all I have, Kristen.
Thank you. Yes, there are some questions coming in the chat that I will walk through really quickly. We do have just a couple questions about the LMS and how you can access these assignments. Jessica did touch on this briefly, but you can access all of these materials, one through the Schoology, or sorry, through the Carnegie website. You'll also be able to integrate these materials into Schoology. There'll also be code if you want to use that code to integrate materials into a different LMS. Apologies, that's my daughter in the background on house duty. So the answer as to how materials can look in a particular district is going to vary based on a district's implementation decision. One of the webinars that Jessica mentioned that we will be offering soon is one just around how to access materials in each of those different situations. So there will be more information on that coming soon. Another question that has come up is what we mean by adopting the resources. So generally, each local district will have its own set of local policies around what is required during adoption, But typically at the minimum, it requires that you have a number of teachers reviewing a product and that you do have board approval that you can use that product in the district. However, there have been certain districts where legally you can pilot a product without board approval, and you may be able to use a product without board approval if you are just trying to test it out. So again, definitely check with your local legal department to make sure you are following kind of the adoption requirements related to the particular resource. We do have a couple comments again on districts that have already started school. So what we plan to do is for districts that are potentially interested in transitioning to a Texas Home Learning resource, we will provide a recommended adapted pacing guide for if you are starting at different points in the year. So you might want to start after your first 6 weeks or after your second 6 weeks or even after your third 6 weeks. If you think that moving to this new resource will be helpful for your teachers and your students, even recognizing that the change is going to be really hard. So again, it's optional to switch, it's optional to adopt, but we will be providing some supports to do that more effectively. When we said we were providing adaptive pacing guides, what we mean by that is we'll provide pacing guides that say, like, if you start after, in the second 6 weeks, here's the pacing guide and the scope and sequence you should follow. That's adapted to as if you were starting from the first 6 weeks. We are not saying that we are necessarily providing pacing guides specifically to the TRS scope and sequence. However, if a district is transitioning from using any product, whether it's TRS or another math product altogether, this new adapted pacing guide and scope and sequence would help you transition to think about how to start using the Carnegie product with fidelity in alignment with their own scope and sequence. We also have another question around if you have already adopted Carnegie. One of the things that will likely be different if you've already adopted Carnegie is the remote learning supports that we're creating as a part of the Texas Home Learning product. So if you've already adopted Carnegie, you can use the updated product with the additional supports included. We've had a question around some trainings for ESCs. We are planning to provide train the trainer sessions to ESCs, both so that they have the information to understand the Carnegie product, as well as some additional supports for how they can support districts in their local area. So you will be able to reach out to your ESC for some additional information and support. We have some questions around feedback. So we will be creating a link that as you're implementing instructional materials, if you are wanting to provide feedback on them, you can. We will make sure to get that link out to folks so that they know how to give feedback for materials as they see them.
Yeah, Kristen, that feedback link is already live and it's found on our texashomelearning.org site. When you click on instructional materials at the bottom, you have that opportunity. And the answer to how quickly will that response be, it really depends on the type of feedback, and will that be for future iterations or current existing pieces, really depends on what the feedback is.
Yeah, and we will respond right away. It's just whether we can implement and update the materials based on a specific set of feedback. I think that Melissa's referring to. We've also just had a couple comments relating to, what if your district has a different formative assessment plan that they're using with their teachers. I think the main thing just to highlight here is a reminder that integrated into this product, there will be mid and end of unit assessments that schools and districts can use to monitor progress across the curriculum. And one of the implementation recommendations actually is, when you're thinking about progress monitoring, to use some of the tools integrated into the curriculum so that you know that a student has already been taught particular standards and skills in the curriculum itself, so that your formative assessments are measuring things that have already been learned. So one of the recommendations, again, is to use the assessment tools integrated into the product. And those will be included with the Texas Home Learning solution if a district is planning to transition. Let me just pause really quick to see if I'm missing any questions that I can answer now. Okay. Any questions we did not answer, we will include in our FAQ document and get an answer. So if your question didn't get answered, just be sure to check that and we will make sure to get those answered after this webinar. I'm not seeing any new questions come in. So we can go ahead and end this webinar. Again, don't hesitate to reach out if you have additional questions. And actually, in the last minute, Jessica, if you don't mind stopping sharing your screen, I'll put up the materials release screen really quick so people can get a last minute view of this. Can you all see the materials release screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is just so you can understand when additional topics and modules will be coming out, so you can plan accordingly. One final question around whether it's possible to use lessons without adopting the program. Again, a district has the flexibility to do whatever they choose as it relates to Texas Home Learning. However, we do recommend that if you are using lessons, you follow the scope and sequence that is provided within the Carnegie product. The lessons build on each other. And so if you are using lessons out of order, or if you are using lessons, some lessons and not other lessons, you are very, very likely going to have gaps in learning for students, and it will be hard to implement with fidelity. In addition, we're only going to be releasing lessons as they're completed and in accordance with the modules and topics that are in the Carnegie scope and sequence. So it would actually be really hard to use lessons and move them around, given that they're going to be released on a rolling basis. I'm going to go ahead and end just because we're at time. Again, don't hesitate to reach out to Texas Home Learning at tea.texas.org if you have additional questions. And for those questions we didn't answer, we'll post them on our FAQ document. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for joining. Have a good rest of your day.